Hello again. In this video, we're going to show you how to create a credit memo and apply it toward an existing invoice. Credit memos are created when you need to, let's say, make adjustment to an existing invoice that's already been sent out to your customer, or an invoice that's been posted to the General Ledger module or GL. Since you're not in this system, you're not allowed to make any changes to an invoice that's been posted. Credit memos allows you to make those corrections and maintain a good audit trail. So to do that, what you need to do is go into invoicing and select create miscellaneous invoices. Okay, and here the first thing you need to do is to select customer. So we're going to continue to use control manufacturing for this example. So select control manufacturing, and the system automatically fills in the invoice date or credit memo date. It uses the invoice number in sequential order, so you want to leave those numbers alone. It's the default by the system. It's auto-generated by the system. Next, you want to go into notes and put in, let's say, credit memos here. And if you do know the invoice number that you want to apply this credit memo against, you can put that in. This will be printed and sent forwarded to your customer, so having additional notes here will help them identify which invoice or open invoice that you would like them to apply this credit memo against. So I'm going to put in 1070 because that's the invoice I want to apply this credit memo against. The PO number, if you have the original customer PO number, you want to put it in here. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the because it's not applied against any particular job, you want to go into the part number and put in a memo, a note, to let your customer know which invoice, or if in the case where you don't have any open invoices to apply against, simply leave it blank or put in just simply credit memo. Okay, credit memo. So in this case, invoice number, let's say 1070, and you can put in other notes just again to help identify the transaction and to maintain a good audit trail, okay, per JV, for example. Okay, and in the department, it's also a good idea to, if you know the original department that you want to apply this credit memo, which will adjust the sales total for this department, then of course you want to select the right department to apply this credit memo against. In the quantity, you want to put in a negative quantity. So in this case, we could negative 1, and unit will be each. Okay, and the amount of the credit memo that you want to issue to your customer. So in this example, we're going to put in 1500. Now notice, because for this customer there's a tax amount or tax percent associated with it, and we want to also issue a credit memo against the tax amount. So you want to maintain this taxable checkbox. But in cases where you don't have any tax, or you don't want to issue credit memo against a tax amount, then you want to uncheck this and recalculate, and you can see that the system takes out the tax amount. But we're going to keep it in place and recalculate it. And so really that's all you have to do. And if you have additional lengthy notes that you want to show your customer as to what this credit memo is about and what it's for, you know, the system allows you to enter additional notes here, more notes as needed, simply by using the down arrow key and type in more notes. More notes for this credit memo. Okay, and really that's all you have to do. At this point you can print it out, which I'm going to go ahead and just preview it on the screen just to show you what it looks like. It's like a typical invoice, except that you now shows that it's a credit memo, date and time, date and the amount, and what it's for. So basically, by putting notes into the part description, it shows on the printout of the credit memo, and that helps. The other trail, but also helps your customer identify which invoice this credit memo is for. Again, if it's an open credit memo where the customer doesn't have any open items, then simply leave this invoice number out. And this normally would be sent forwarded to your customer, and they will use this credit memo and apply it accordingly. Okay, so next, how do we apply this credit memo against the invoice that that's open in the system for that customer. So again, we're going to go into the accounts receivable module, and we're going to go into apply payments and credit. And again, we're going to select the customer. In this case, it's Control Manufacturing. And as you can see here, once you put in the customer, select the customer from the list, the system pulls up all the open transactions, invoices, and credit memo, and clearly we can see that there is a credit memo that has not been applied because it has a balance of non-zero. In this case, the full amount of the credit memo is waiting for this to be applied. In other words, waiting to be told which open invoice that you want to apply this against. So again, in this case, we're going to maintain the default payment date because there's no payment amount. But in cases where you do have a check received coming in for this customer, you can put in the check and apply the credit memo at the same time along with the check. Okay, but in this case, because we didn't receive any check, we're going to just leave it 0. And we're going to change this to, let's say, credit memo, because we didn't receive a check. We're just simply applying a credit memo against another open invoice. So we're going to leave that there, and there's no reference number, but the reference number is again the credit memo. So CR credit memo of 1111. Batch number, again, you can put in the initial of the person who's doing this and the date and time to quickly trace back to the person who's carrying out this payment distribution or application. So 0918, okay. Notes, you can put in credit memo, and again, we're going to leave the default accounts receivable and checking account blank. The system is designed to not really deposit a credit memo because it's a non-cash type of transaction, so it's not going to affect your checking account. However, it will reduce the credit, the receivable balance accordingly based on how much you apply. So the first thing you want to do is you want to apply the credit memo. So we're going to double click on this, and as soon as you do that, you can see that the remaining amount to apply is that of the amount of the credit memo. Again, in this case, I'm double clicking on that credit memo, assuming that we're going to use the full amount of the credit memo balance. So in this case, it's $1,597.50. However, let's say in cases where you have a partial, let's say they only use a partial of that credit memo, half of it or whatever, then you put in the amount that they expressed or they told you to apply. So again, in this, to simplify this example, we're going to use the full amount of the balance of the credit memo. And with that, it shows you that you have this much to apply toward another open invoice. So in this case, we're going to apply that toward this this one right here, which was previously paid with another check, and it has a partial balance of $24,929.83. So in this case, we're going to apply another $1,500, $1,597.50 toward this open balance. So again, I'm going to double click, and clearly you can see that the amount is now down to 0. So in summary, what's happening here is that we're using this credit memo against this invoice of 1070, and it works out correctly to the remaining applied of 0. The net balance at the end of this transaction is that the credit memo is no longer on the open agent report, and the invoice is now reduced by that same amount. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay. There you have it, and you can repeat this cycle for another credit memo transaction. And that concludes the video on how to apply or how to create and apply a credit memo for any customer.